Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Obviously, I am not there today. I have a sinus infection and a massive headache, so I am not going to school. However, you guys do have two videos that you need to take notes on today, and also there is a homework assignment for Monday. Please make sure you go to the Blackboard China folder and open up the history of China reading and read the very first page. It's going to end at the 7 warring states. There is a link there for the 7 warring states, which is only going to take you to a map, but you do also need to read 3 additional articles from Monday as well, one on Confucianism, one on Taoism, and the other one on legalism, and all 3 links are included in the Introduction to China folder. So, for your first lecture portion today, we're going to continue on when we left yesterday. And yesterday we were really talking a lot about the economic situation in China. We're going to find out that since 1978, the government has dramatically reformed the economy, and the growth rate has improved by 9% each year, which is absolutely tremendous, especially when we considered the large growth rate in Russia under Putin, which was only 5% a year, the fact that he's losing some of his support and control because that growth rate is going to drop to 2% a year. And what we saw in Russia was that all this was tied to oil. And when you tie stuff to a natural resource commodity, obviously you're at the mercy of the market. And you don't have that with China. China is not going to be at the mercy of the market. They are looking at innovations, technology, manufacturing, things that can be controlled by China and not necessarily controlled by OPEC or a conglomeration of other states determining how much oil they're going to pump in order to get the price per barrel. China is not going to have to deal with those issues. So you do see, again, millions of people being lifted up from poverty, which has drastically increased the stability of the society. However, you do, again, still see that China B. And again, China B is a rural, impoverished area inside of China that is not going to experience economic growth and is going to actually be projected to continue to fall further and further behind. The gap is what you have to avoid. The gap between China A and China B needs to be decreased dramatically if they want to be able to maintain power and still be in control. And again, if we go all the way back to the beginning of the year and we took a look about our political ideologies and our theorists, and we discuss this Eastern Coast phenomenon, that also is going on inside of China. It is an Eastern Coast urban areas phenomenon where they're getting extremely rich, increasing the size of the middle class, increasing consumer consumption and spending, and people have money, but it is not widespread. There are, again, still segments of the population located inside of China B that is relatively poor and impoverished. Although China B is not as bad as it used to be, but it still is not good. You still can see areas of China that are living the exact same way that you had 100, 200, and 300 years ago, and they are still getting the about the same amount of economic success. When you take a look at China A, what we see is 23% of our income is concentrated in the top 5% of the population, while the bottom 5% of the population earns less than 0.1%. This is bad. This is that economic disparity that we are all trying to avoid. If you have a large underprivileged second-class citizens who eventually organize, they are going to overthrow the government. And that's one of the things that we've been attempting to avoid inside of Russia and also inside of China. So economic inequality started to increase under Deng, and he's the one that is going to sponsor this economic miracle inside of China. And again, it's because you've got these market-oriented reforms and this open economy since 1978. What we see now currently is this idea of opening up the system to more people, deregularizing, having less state-run enterprises, trying to get more and more people into this economic system so they can experience some of the benefits of the economic system that are going to then be outweighed by the loss of our social contract or social reforms. So again, I do not have universal education. I do not have universal health care, universal pensions. All that ended up being taken away. So I need to balance this stuff all out so the rich don't continue to get richer and the poor don't continue to get poorer. Policies now that are going to favor heavy industries in cities and special economic zones and coastal areas are one of the reasons that you have this disparity, and you see China trying to get rid of these policies today. All right, next. Today, like most of Chinese history, economic growth is very disproportionate. And again, it benefits urban areas over our eastern coastal rural inhabitants. And again, that is going to be a problem. And again, a lot of the farmers are still going to be relatively poor. All right, the land itself. Like most of our civilizations, China is going to develop around the river valleys. The Yellow and the Yangtze are going to be the two most important rivers. They are going to be slightly different, however. The difference is how the rivers actually function. In most cases, the rivers are going to remain relatively good, status quo. You might have winter rains increase or, snowfall increase the size of rivers. You might have an occasional flood, but the Chinese rivers flood unpredictably, and they flood often, and they flood severely. So this is going to be a problem. Since the mid-19th century, the population has grown to be over 450 million. Such a large population is going to require an immense amount of food. Our new cultivation methods and introduction of new crops like maize and sweet potatoes and peanuts helped to sort of combat natural disasters and the floods and overuse of the fields by supporting people in very different ways. However, for various reasons, the issue of China is still going back to flooding. I can introduce all these new crops. I can have all these new technologies and methods of growing food, and I can grow more food. The problem is the food actually going to be able to be harvested and then distributed to the population? In the case of China, it is not always so because of massive flooding. The majority of the rivers are located in very low-lying areas, which flood easily. South China is susceptible to heavy rains that increase the water volume and also lead to flooding. With the majority of people living near a water source, it means you have destruction of agriculture, destruction of your industry, in your homes, and basically all of your economy is going to be destroyed every time you have a massive flood. All the principal rivers of China are going to flood. And we do have three principal rivers, the Yellow, the Yangtze, and also the Pearl. China has been affected by some of the deadliest floods in the world. It's estimated between 2.5 million and 3.75 million people actually died during the 1931 flood. You also are going to see that flooding increases the spread of other things. So people don't all die in the flood. Some of them are going to die to secondary diseases related to the flood, such as cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. Environmental changes have also increased the severity of the floods that are going on inside of China. So as climate change increases, as weather have increased, we see increase in rainfall, we see the increase of typhoons, and also air pollution, which is going to impact the south and the coastal regions, which impacts your economy. The rivers also are very unpredictable. They either flood or you don't get enough rain to grow your crops. So it is a bad situation. Either way, it's going to lead to mass destruction or a famine. All right, so ways to solve this problem. So we see that there are ways to solve the problem of the flooding, and that is building dams. So you do see a lot of central dams that are going to build inside of China that provide the engineering ability to control the flow of the river. The government has tried to stop the impact of the rivers through mass engineering. It does serve two purposes. Number one, it controls irrigation and also creates hydroelectric power. China, again, is going to be almost as one of the world's largest consumers of energy, and the mass majority of their energy is coming in the form of coal, which means that you are increasing your pollution rate, which the world is concerned about. So what we have here in the picture is the Three Gorges Dam, which was completed in 2008. It stretches across the Yangtze River. It generates 10 times the power of the Hoover Dam here in the United States, which is only a fraction of the energy is actually needed. The government is now building dams all across the southwestern region in hopes of producing 120,000 megawatts of renewable energy each year, and again trying to decrease the reliability on fossil fuels. The dams are to be safe, avoid pollution, assist with climate control, control floods, and reduce the impact of droughts. However, there are always some negatives. So the dams do have some negatives as well. They block the natural flow of the rivers, they increase the chances of earthquakes, they destroy parts of the environment, in particular parts of the environment that have historical relics in it, and also they cause pollution, population relocation. One of the biggest issues you had with the building of the Three Gorges Dam was the relocation of the population, which obviously the dam has been built and people have been relocated. However, they were farmers used to very fertile soil, and where they got relocated is not a fertile farmland. They got relocated in the desert where they're trying to use irrigation methods in order to grow food. The types of food have changed, the methods have to be changed, and as a result of that, you are going to see a decrease in production amount. All right, today China's rivers, air, and land is extremely polluted. And part of the reason is this rapid industrialization without governmental control. This has led to an increase in desertification, high water, and electricity demand, and also thinning glaciers. This is going to threaten China's ability to continue on with their economic growth in the future. Air pollution is one of the top concerns inside of China. According to the Environmental Protection Agency air pollution scale, any pollution rate above 300 means that the air is unsafe to breathe. It's recommended if it is above 300 that people stay indoors, use an air purifier, and remain pretty much motionless. In January 2013, China surpassed the 3,000 level on 19 days, and is now have readings above 500, which is not unusual. So the air is not going to be of high quality inside of China. Manufacturing is partially to blame for this. There are no governmental regulations, so technically they are not breaking the law because they are manufacturing according to what is legal there. However, it is not just manufacturing. It's also the mass majority of the population still being reliant on coal as a fossil fuel as an energy source. They need to harness basically all the renewable energy that are being generated by the dams in order to clean up their environment. And again, you need to start to see some regulations put in by the government in order to try to improve the air quality. More than half of China's surface water also is polluted and cannot be treated in order to make it drinkable, which is a problem. Access to drinkable water is one of the things that you see around the world that many people are concerned about. A quarter of the water inside of China is so dangerous that it cannot be used even for industrial purposes, which means that they're going to start to see a decrease in their economic success in manufacturing, which means that they potentially can see a decrease in support for the government and an overthrow, which they're trying desperately not to have. So many people are concerned about the water as well. Groundwater typically also is not safe to drink because of contamination. About 40% of China's farmland, it uses groundwater for irrigation, and the mass majority of that is going to be contaminated. So you're basically using contaminated water to irrigate your fields, which means you are now producing contaminated food, which is going to start to see an increase of health issues and concerns inside of the rest of your population. It's estimated that 90% of all of the farmland is irrigated by this contaminated water, which means about 90% of all of your food is going to be polluted. All right, so our video is cut off at 15 minutes. I'm about at 12:30-ish now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this one, and then I'm going to start to record video number 2. Please do not think it is over. We got some more time left. So please move on to video number 2. We'll take another about 10, 12 minutes of notes, and then I'll give you some time to work.